Lor Scoota, at the age of only 23, was shot and killed in broad daylight at a busy intersection this past Friday. 23 years of age. Can you guys believe that shit? I mean, here was a young man growing up in the streets of Baltimore. You know anything about Baltimore, it is fucking rough out there. Now, you'll have some people say, yeah, it's nice to visit. Yeah, it might be nice to visit, but you can't help it. Every time you go out there, you're like constantly looking over your shoulders. And some of you may be like, well, if you just stick to the areas where there won't be any trouble, you should be okay. Well, see, the way Baltimore is pretty much set up, you got like these corner block sections where one area will be on point, everybody will be friendly, cordial, and all that with one another, and then like literally 2-3 blocks down, you're in a fucking ghetto and you pretty much gotta like watch out for yourself and all that shit. So just think about that for a second. 23-year-old kid gunned down in broad daylight. Now, some of you guys may be like, God damn, somebody had some serious balls. Yeah, it takes a lot of balls to do an act of violence against another human being, period. But let alone doing it in broad daylight. Now, here's what's really fucked up about this particular story. And look, I know some people may be like, well, that's nothing compared to what had went down in Chicago, and I definitely agree 100% with what you're bringing right there. You're not going to get any argument with me. I think all these deaths that's been happening, yes, it needs to be highlighted. It needs to be talked about. There needs to be very serious discussions about what is going on with our youth and what is going on with, in particular, the gun violence that continues to plague many streets, for sure, over here in the DMV area. But what's really fucked up about this particular story, like I said, on top of being 23 years of age, just think about that for a moment, because I know a majority of you are listeners who I appreciate that tune in week in and week out. The majority of you guys are between the ages of 25 to 44 or 25 to 54. Just think back for a moment there. Remember when you were 23 years of age and you had like the entire world just ahead of you? Now, with all due respect to 25-year-olds, that's still relatively young, but you've been an adult for a couple of years now. You're finally starting to find your groove and all that. I've always looked at age 20 through 24, those first couple years of your fuck ups before you like learn from your mistakes, improve. Pretty much those first couple of years that you're in your 20s is very critical, because how you lay down the foundation for your life when you get ready to make the transition into your 30s, what you do in your 20s is very key. And I always have believed that those first 3 to 4 years that you are within your 20s is the most critical. So here is a young man that wasn't just running around the streets. He wasn't slinging dope or meeting somebody on the street and trying to sell them guns and all that other stupid shit. This guy was a gifted rapper who touched a lot of lives in Baltimore, touched a lot of lives in the DMV area. This man was coming up. You had people like The Game that was giving him the nod. And I don't mean The Game Triple H. I'm talking about the rapper The Game, who gave him props and was like, yeah, this young man's up and coming and all that. A lot of eyes was on this young man. They believed in his gift. He was taking this new publicity that he was getting and he was trying to turn it into positivity. He was trying to be about something. Now, bad enough as it is to be a young black man, and we don't have to make it just be a black thing, okay? You're poor, you're poor. Poor knows no discrimination when it comes to color, okay? You're poor, you're poor. And for this guy, the way that he was coming up, especially on the streets of Baltimore, always looking over your shoulder, probably wondering where your next meal is going to be coming from and all that. every day it can be a hustle. But here he is in a situation where he's finally able to try to get something going and lead by example. And this young man had just left a charity basketball game in Baltimore calling for peace in the streets, when less than an hour later he was gunned down and killed. Now, he was driving in his car when an unknown black male wearing a white bandana had stepped into the street and opened fire. This according to the Baltimore police. Watson was brought to a local hospital but died as a result of the injuries he sustained. And it really appears as though the shooter was indeed targeting Watson, aka Lor Scoota. Now, you have reports that's out there. This is just speculation. Let's deal with the facts. The young man is now deceased, but you have speculation floating around that this shooter may have targeted Scoota because of his fame. Basically, he was jealous of the success that this young man was beginning to have in his career. Other than that, there's no other motive that is really known right now. Now, police are examining video that is related to this shooting that has come about, and in the meantime, they're asking for anyone that was in the vicinity that maybe have seen anything, has some type of knowledge of what went down, to get in contact with the local authorities. And as you would imagine, the Baltimore police are extremely pissed off about this because, like I said, he just came from a charity basketball event calling for peace in the streets, and he gets gunned down less than an hour later. I can't begin to tell you how much they want to catch the son of a bitch that had did this. So I know John Walsh, he recently came back with a new season of The Hunt. I know he only does about maybe 24 episodes. I know he's done a lot of stuff here in the DMV area. He even had the now defunct Spy Museum that was here some years back. I don't know if maybe the family, surviving family members, friends have already tried to get in contact with him. But I tell you what, it would really be awesome if they could work something out with John Walsh, and maybe they could do a special edition of The Hunt and see if maybe they can even give this case more light that it needs. But very sad, very tragic. And the problem in Baltimore, I mean, it's really no different than Chicago, but compared to Chicago, and no disrespect to my Chicago natives, born and raised in Chicago for many years, but to see the problems that Chicago has had, nothing compared to Baltimore. But if I'm like thinking of just like the number 3 places like to try to avoid, because you got to look over your shoulder and wonder if you're going to get popped or not. Chicago number 1, Baltimore I would have to put at number 2 respectfully. Now with Baltimore, as if 2015 alone in homicides that were a result of shooting. So you want to really break it down, 2015 shooting deaths. I'm not saying 2015 shooting deaths. I'm saying when you look at the number of shooting deaths in the year 2015 in Baltimore, really, really bad. As in 2015 alone, it had reached a unprecedented, get this number, 344 homicides, and was only second to the record of 353 in Baltimore back in 1993, back then when Baltimore had more than 100,000 residents. Now, the killings that have come about in recent years during the months of 2015 really kept skyrocketing since the riots had went down late in April, and then the next 5 of the next 8 months of last year there were killings that topped 30 or about 40 a month. You with me so far? 90% of that year's homicides were the result of shootings, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's got people talking about new gun laws and all that. Also, look at that 90% again. more than about 90% of the homicide victims that year were boys or men, and more than 90% of those victims were black, and more than half were between the ages of 18 to 30. Now, you look at what's been going on recently, just this calendar year alone, and you can go look this information up yourself through the Baltimore Sun. You can actually see all the homicides. You can break it down. You can look at how many homicides were done by blunt force, by stabbings, unknown, asphyxiation, you name it, shootings. You just look up shootings for 2016 so far this year. There has been 122 homicides. Now, bear in mind, Lor Scoota had his whole ordeal, as I mentioned, on Friday. So, like, about less than 48 hours later, another male shot and killed. And then, about less than 48 hours after that, another male was shot and killed. So a huge epidemic that we have going on. And you know, it's rare that I get into this whole talk about gun control and all this other shit. You know, if you ask me straight up what my honest takeaway is with all this shit that's going down, I would honestly have to say that it comes down to one thing. It comes down to one thing. It is about the people that have these guns. I care more about the individuals that are behind the gun as opposed to, hey, they're using a gun. And I don't know how it was for a lot of you guys growing up, but when I was a kid, let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something. We need more outreach programs in these ghettos. In these neighborhoods where there are nothing but fucking liquor stores on every single fucking corner. And if not a liquor store, then you got some Asian fucking carry out where they accept food stamps, so you can go get your chicken wings and french fries and fucking mumbo sauce and all that. Oh, wait a minute, I know they don't use the food stamp monopoly money anymore. What is it called now? A EBT card or something like that? I'm not knocking it. I'm just trying to make sure I'm politically correct here. But if you don't have the liquor stores on every single fucking corner, then you have some low budget ass carry out that's not really giving you healthy alternatives. It's pretty much greasy food, so that basically will set up an obesity problem, poor health, high cholesterol, prelude to diabetes. Take your pick. If you don't have those around the corner on every single fucking corner, you have these establishments like nightclubs, stripper clubs where people are getting stabbed, shot, killed. We need to have more outreach programs. We need to have more community outreach volunteer programs that gives these young youths something to do when they're not in school. I'll go a step further than that. Once school is done, because we're not like Japan, we're not like China, as Donald Trump likes to. I like China. I love China. I've got no problem with China. We gotta do more when school is not in session during the holiday breaks and during the summer. If that means there needs to be outreach programs, volunteer community service programs pretty much all year round, then so be it. But if you give these youths a opportunity, if you put them in a position where they can come and they can interact with other kids their age, they can get into some fun activities and all that, I think in the long haul their lives would be completely different. And honestly, I'm living proof of that. I don't mind bragging about it. But let me tell you something. If it wasn't for programs like the Boys and Girls Club, Because I was growing up on the streets of Chicago. Let me tell you, it was definitely, I saw both sides of the coin when I lived in Chicago. I experienced what it was like living in the ghetto as far as the projects go. You know how when Good Times used to come on and they used to show those shots that they would show of the project and all that before they zoomed in on that nice cool ass painting and all that. Those projects, I lived just down the street from those projects. Me and my grandmother and all that, we used to live just down the street from those projects. So trust me, every time I see Good Times, I no matter how many times over the years I've seen X amount of Good Times episodes, I still continue to watch it because it's always that bridge of a connection there for me remembering my time in Chicago. But I've been on the poor side. I've also lived in the nice areas in Chicago. And I can tell you, when I was growing up, I was a badass. I would get in trouble. I'd get in trouble for shoplifting. I'd get in trouble for fighting some kid. I never, proud to say this, never pulled any type of weapon on a kid. But if I wasn't shoplifting, and when I would shoplift, really, I didn't have any business shoplifting. There was no reason for me to shoplift at the age that I was doing it. I did it because I was a badass when it's all said and done. I knew better. I chose to do that. Everything in life is a choice. But that's the type of lifestyle that I chose to live. And I tell you, the best blessing in disguise that ever came in my life was being given an opportunity where I was able to go to the Boys and Girls Club, and I was able to swim or play basketball or play foosball, watch movies, and sometimes there would be like sleepovers. I don't know if you guys ever had that in your neck of the woods with the Boys and Girls Clubs, but the counselors and all that, they would say, oh yeah, like once every couple of months or whatever, yeah, we're gonna do this cool 3-day weekend event. It's gonna be on Friday, Saturday. Parents will come pick you all up on Sunday morning. It's gonna be cool. There's gonna be a lot of movies. We're gonna have some nice little raffle drawings and all that. It was really cool how they had it all set up, and like if you wanted to partake in that, you basically had got like this permission slip, and your parent had to sign it. Now, what they would do, once your parent signed it, they would actually call your parent, and they would make sure that, oh, hey, we were just trying to touch bases with you. We were just trying to make sure that, in fact, you did sign off on your son or your daughter, that it's okay that they can come on over and do the 3-day event at the Boys and Girls Club. And the security there, it was tight. It was tight. Once you went in there, what was that, like Friday night, and they locked the doors and all that, that was pretty much it. You were there unless they had to call your parent, and like your parent had to come and get you because either you were being too difficult or there was some type of an emergency and all that. The way they acted like a lot of the volunteers that were there, they acted as though we were their kids. So they treated us accordingly, okay? But I tell you, if it wasn't for a program like that, I don't know where I would be. If it wasn't for libraries, that's another good alternative. You don't have access to a Boys and Girls Club? Well, you can get lost at your nearby library. But we need more of these type of institutions in these ghettos to really help out the youths, because I tell you, not to get all cynical and all that, but the children are our future. And we need to have the best resources, the best tools that's out there to give them every opportunity to succeed in life. Nowhere in the world should any life, because all lives are precious, but to hear these stories time and time again of these individuals that are so young, like Lor Scoota, barely has scratched the surface of his life, cut short. Too heartbreaking. I'm really tired of hearing about this. Anybody remember the DARE program that we had back in the day? I mean, that was, and wasn't the late Nancy Reagan behind that? I mean, my God, maybe we need to have like something like that make a serious comeback You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love in closing, because I'm definitely going to get to the talk of wrestling, but I have to talk about it because it hits close to home. I'm here in the DMV area, so when I found out about this death, I was already messing with the guy's music off and on within recent years, and when I heard this, I was like, oh shit, are you kidding me? But like, I'd like to see, and not to make it be a race thing, but the fact that it keeps happening to our young black men. I'd like to see the Denzel Washington, since he always wants to do these Boys and Girls Club commercials and all that. I like to see him get in up on this. I'd like to see the Charles S. Dutton. Anybody remember Charles S. Dutton, Rock, and all the times he used to tackle gang violence and all that was going on in Baltimore? If you don't know about Charles S. Dutton in the TV series Rock that was on Fox back in the 90s, go look that up, because that was like such a brilliant fucking black sitcom. I haven't seen anything come close to it to this day, and that says a lot. A timeless classic right there. But I'd like to see the Charles S. Duttons. I'd like to see the Denzel Washingtons. I'd like to see the Raheem Devon, who was just out here in DC just a couple of weeks ago, trying to promote better, healthier lifestyles for young black men, living a life that doesn't consist of violence and all that. I definitely would like to see him. He is definitely like one of our biggest advocates over here for stopping violence and all that. I like to see him get up in there. Say what you will about Bill Cosby. I like to see him. I want to see all of the black celebrities that's out there. The Spike Lees. I'm calling all of you guys out. I want to see you guys, if you all can unite and do these little protests and all that for Black People Matter at the Oscars and all that other shit. You know, I'd like to see you guys get together and really lead the fight and stopping all of these young, not that young black lives. I don't mean to just, but when you really look at the statistics, it's a scary, scary statistic. 2, 3, 4 statistics that's out there. All lives matter. So let's just really bring it in full circle. Stop the violence that's going on with our youths. Enough said. That's all I gotta say. And definitely nothing but thoughts and prayers go to the friends, the family, the fans of Lor Scoota. I'm really pulling. I hope the son of a bitch that did what they did to this young man, I really hope that they are brought to justice. Now is not the time. I can't stress this enough, because I know our show has reach in the DMV area. If you know something, I know here in DMV, motherfuckers don't really like to talk to the police. But you just got to put yourself, you know, in that victim's shoes. You got to think about that family. That family, they need peace. Help them find that peace. Do what you need to do to remain anonymous.